I first noticed him when the monitors flickered. A tall man in a dark coat standing in the middle of the lobby staring straight at the camera. I blinked, leaned closer, and he was gone. Yet the glass doors hadn't opened once. It was just after 2 in the morning, the slowest part of my shift. I worked security at a mid-sized office building downtown. Nights were usually quiet. Occasional cleaning crews, a delivery or two, nothing out of the ordinary. That night, though, the silence felt heavier than usual. The kind that makes every small sound echo in your chest. The grainy black and white feed from the lobby caught my eye first. There he was again. Same coat, same motionless posture. He stood with his head tilted slightly upward, like he was studying the ceiling. I switched to another angle. Empty. Back to the first camera. He was there, frozen as if he hadn't moved an inch. My stomach tightened. The doors hadn't budged and the motion sensors hadn't registered a thing. Still, I picked up the phone and radioed the building's night janitor, Luis, who was vacuuming 2 floors above. He hadn't seen anyone come in either. I decided to check for myself. The elevator ride down felt unusually slow. The fluorescent light above me hummed with a sharp buzz, flickering once before going steady again. When the doors opened, the lobby looked just as it always did. Polished tile floors, the faint smell of disinfectant, the quiet whir of the air conditioning. Empty. I crossed the lobby, scanning every corner. The glass doors were still locked, the keypad untouched. No footprints on the freshly mopped floor. Nothing. I stood there for a moment, listening. That's when I heard it. The soft, deliberate click of shoes against the tile, echoing from the far end of the lobby. My chest went cold. I turned, expecting to see someone walking toward me, but the space was completely clear. The sound stopped. My heart pounded in my throat as I backed toward the security desk. I glanced up at the nearest camera. Nothing but the empty stretch of lobby. I looked back down at the monitors upstairs, and that's when my blood ran cold. On the feed, I could see myself standing in the middle of the lobby, and behind me, the man in the dark coat. I spun around. The space was bare. Not a single shadow where he should have been. I stared at the doors again, almost willing them to show me something. Fingerprints, smudges, any proof I wasn't losing it, but they were spotless. Shaking, I returned to the desk and rewound the footage. What I saw made my stomach twist. On the recording, the man walked slowly across the lobby, pausing right in front of the front desk. He leaned forward, close enough that the camera almost blurred his face, and then he turned, looked directly at the lens, directly at me, and smiled. But when I switched to the other angle, there was no one, just me, looking around like an idiot, glancing over my shoulder at nothing. I shut the monitors off. Luis came down around 4 to empty trash bins and asked why I looked pale. I didn't tell him. I couldn't explain what I'd seen without sounding insane. When my shift ended, I grabbed my things and left faster than I ever had before. The morning air felt too still, too heavy. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've started avoiding the monitors altogether. But last night, curiosity got the better of me. I let the feed play in the background while I scrolled through my phone. At exactly 2:07 a.m., the screens flickered. He was back, standing in the lobby, that same tilted head, that same long coat. Only this time I didn't see him on just one camera. He was on all of them. Every angle of the lobby, every feed, the same figure staring straight up. And then, as I sat frozen in my chair, all 12 monitors went black at once. For a few seconds, the only thing I could hear was the buzzing of the fluorescent lights above me and the pounding of my own heartbeat. Then, one by one, the monitors flickered back to life. Every screen showed the same image. The man in the coat, no longer in the lobby but standing in the security room, right behind my chair. The first call came just after midnight, a shaky voice whispering, "Please, help me, he's in the room." I froze, staring at the glowing red digits of the switchboard. Room 9. Room 9 had been locked for weeks. The carpeting was torn up, the walls stripped bare for renovations. No one was supposed to be in there. At first, I thought it was a prank. Working the night desk at a roadside motel, you get your share of weird calls. Drunks, teenagers messing around. even the occasional traveler who liked to test the night clerk's nerves. But this voice wasn't mocking. It wasn't playful. It was terrified. I picked up the line. "Sir, what's going on? Who's in your room?" For a few seconds, all I heard was static, the faint hiss of the line. Then came ragged breathing, uneven, shallow, like whoever it was had been running. Finally, a single word, whispered with urgency that crawled under my skin. "Hide." The line went dead. The lobby fell into silence. I could hear the soft hum of the vending machine behind me, the tick of the wall clock. I stared at the receiver in my hand, every hair on my arm standing on end when the phone rang again. The same line. "Room 9. This time the voice was more frantic. "He's outside the door. Don't let him in, please." I swallowed hard and turned to the system log. The motel system wasn't fancy, but every door was connected to a keycard reader. If anyone entered, it registered. Room 9 hadn't been accessed in weeks, still locked. I opened the drawer just to be sure. Both spare keys were there. Accounted for. I told myself it had to be a glitch, some crossed wire in the motel's ancient switchboard. But the more I stared at the glowing red light on the panel, the less I believed it. The line wasn't broken. It wasn't random interference, it was active. Someone was calling from inside that room. Against my better judgment, I grabbed the master key and a flashlight, then started down the hall. The motel corridors always gave me the creeps after midnight. The patterned carpet muffled my steps, but tonight my shoes squeaked on every step. Too loud, too sharp in the silence. The air felt heavy, almost damp, like a storm was pressing in, though outside the night was still. The overhead fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, flickering every few feet as if struggling to stay alive. When I reached the end of the hall, my chest tightened. Room 9. The door looked worse than I remembered, covered in dust, taped with a faded renovation sign that hung by one corner. The wood had warped slightly, leaving a thin crack right down the center. Through it, I thought I saw darkness shift, like someone moving on the other side. I raised my hand toward the knob. Before I could touch it, the lobby phone rang again, its shrill tone slicing through the hallway. I fumbled for the portable receiver clipped to my belt and lifted it with trembling fingers. The voice was faint now, half swallowed by static, but I caught the words. "Don't open it. He'll see you." My stomach dropped. Then came the knock. 3 heavy, deliberate bangs from inside the room. The door shuddered in its frame. I dropped the receiver, stumbling back a step. Another knock followed, harder this time, dust falling in little puffs from the warped frame. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs felt like they were sinking into the carpet. The silence between knocks stretched, unbearable, until I finally found the strength to back down the hall. My eyes never left the door, not even when I turned the corner and broke into a run back to the lobby. By the time I slammed back into my chair, my breath was ragged, my shirt damp with sweat. And then the phone rang again. Room 9. My hands shook as I lifted the receiver. The voice was quieter now, barely more than a whisper, strained and broken. "He's in here, please, don't let him leave." I couldn't respond. My throat was dry, my lips numb. Then I heard something new, not static, not breathing. The creak of another receiver being lifted. A long, low exhale, so close it almost felt like it was in the lobby with me. And then the line went dead. I sat there, frozen, gripping the phone until the sun rose. When the day manager finally walked in, I must have looked half mad. He asked what happened and I told him everything. He didn't laugh, didn't even look surprised. He just stared at me for a long moment before saying, "That room's been closed since the last clerk quit. Said he kept getting calls from it too. I haven't worked a night shift since, but sometimes late at night, my phone at home rings once and stops. No caller ID, just a single missed call. And every time I check the log, the number ends with the same digit. Gara 9. At exactly 3:07 a.m., the footage froze on an image that made my skin crawl. Me walking down the north hallway, except the timestamp said the clip wouldn't happen for another 10 minutes. I worked night security at a corporate office park, the kind of place where the halls were always too quiet. the air always too still. The building was mostly empty past midnight, except for the hum of vending machines and the occasional flicker of fluorescent bulbs. It was a lonely job, but usually uneventful. That night I was sipping stale coffee, half asleep at the monitor bank, when I noticed the feed from camera 12 twitch. It jumped, skipped a frame, then locked onto a still image. The screen showed the north hallway, long, sterile, with its beige walls and endless row of locked office doors. And there I was, clear as day, walking down the middle of it with my flashlight raised. I leaned closer, trying to remember if I'd just patrolled that section, but then I noticed the timestamp 3:17 a.m. I checked the desk clock. It was 3:07. A cold pressure sank into my chest. This wasn't playback. The DVR was set to live feed. I was staring at footage of myself that hadn't happened yet. For a long minute, I just sat there, frozen, watching the still image on the screen. Then, slowly, the footage began to move. My double kept walking, steady, deliberate, his flashlight beam sliding across the walls. The soundless feed made it worse. Just that grainy image of me moving through the hall 10 minutes into the future. My palms were slick with sweat as I pushed back from the desk. Against every bit of better judgment, I grabbed my flashlight and walked toward the north hallway. Each step echoed too loudly on the linoleum. The closer I got, the colder the air felt, like the AC had kicked into overdrive just for that wing. When I turned the corner, the hallway was empty, silent. I shined the flashlight ahead, sweeping across the blank doors, the sterile walls, the exit sign glowing faintly red at the end. Nothing moved, but the hair on the back of my neck prickled as if someone was standing just behind me. I forced myself to walk the length of the corridor, my own footsteps muffled by the oppressive quiet. By the time I reached the end, my heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. There was nothing there, just the hum of the lights above me. I hurried back to the control room. When I sat down, the monitor was still playing. My double had stopped halfway down the hall. He stood perfectly still, head tilted slightly to the side, flashlight lowered. Then, slowly, he turned and looked directly at the camera. My breath caught. It was me, but his face didn't match mine. The features were wrong, off somehow. Too sharp, the eyes too dark. His lips curled into the faintest smile before the screen froze again. The timestamp ticked forward to 3:17 a.m. The clock on the desk read 3:16. I don't know why, but I couldn't look away. My eyes burned as the seconds crawled past. The instant the clock flipped to 3:17, the monitor glitched and the hallway was empty again. The recording ended there. No trace of the figure. No explanation. I sat in that chair until dawn, afraid to leave. Afraid to look down the halls again. The strangest part? When the morning staff came in, I tried to pull up the footage to prove what I'd seen. The DVR log for 3:07 to 3:17 was gone. Corrupted, the system claimed. But last night during my shift it happened again. Different hallway, same time. And this time my future self wasn't just walking. He was standing at the security desk watching the monitors, with someone else standing behind him.